Hola, hola. What's up, Tech Mel? Welcome back to the channel. Back again today, and wanted to go over a story that we've covered. Charlotte Sena covered this multiple times that she went missing on a Friday night. Not Friday night, sorry. I believe it was Sunday after going for a bike ride on the 30th, September 30th. And this guy was caught, this weirdo looking guy, Craig Ross Jr. We were talking about it back then. And there's been talks about this whole potentially being linked in other cases, missing persons, murder cases. And that's been out for a little bit too, but there was this Nancy Grace episode that came out that I thought we could listen to. So I'll go over some of the details and then we'll get into Nancy Grace. And also, I just want to say thank you to everybody that came through with the trial, supported. Appreciate that. So, let's start here. Set up here. All right. So, Charlotte Sena kidnapping suspect eyed in two cold case murders nearby. Profiler addresses potential connection. So, these other two murders is Christina White and Jennifer Moonbeam Hammond were found dead, suspected homicides just a few miles apart in Saratoga County, New York. And that's the county where this guy, show you the picture, I've seen the thumbnail. This guy caught, left a ransom note for the parents. I forgot how much he requested. Was it like 40 or 50,000 or 30? I don't remember. He left a ransom note for the parents of Charlotte, and they tracked him down. The shocking arrest of suspected ransom kidnapper in upstate New York has refocused attention on a pair. Has refocused attention on a pair of unsolved slayings in the same immediate area of Saratoga County. Christina White and Jennifer Moonbeam Hammond, ages 19 and 18 respectively, vanished 2 years apart and were later found dumped in a rural Greenfield, New York. White's skeleton remains were recovered a year after she vanished near Daketown Road in June 2005, and authorities said she had been stabbed in the gut. Her phone, wallet, and knife she usually carried were missing. And I read a News Nation article that they were saying that the officials they're not saying it is connected. They're not saying it's not connected. They're just looking at the possibilities. So Hammond, a Colorado native, was last seen in August 2003 when her coworkers dropped her off at the creek in Pines Trailer Park off Midland Road in Ballston Spa, where she was going door to door to sell magazines, according to authorities. These are the two girls here. Christina White on the left, last seen alive 2005, June. And police found her remains a year later, stabbed to death. The only thing with this is like the MO is different and kind of doesn't fit. I don't know. So the deputies found the partial remains of Jennifer Hammond on the right side in 2009, October, 6 years after she was last seen selling magazines in a trailer park along Middletown Road in Ballston Spa. When we're listening to Nancy Grace, I'm going to pull up the map and try to pinpoint all the different locations, how close, how far. Around the corner, police rescued a 9-year-old kidnapped victim, Charlotte Sena. And that was a pretty big deal when she was found alive. I was shocked and happy, and it's like, wow. Orber, oh my God. Orber says, I'm at the hospital waiting to be induced. Baby is giving me high blood pressure. Oh, no. All right. I mean, that's kind of normal. I'm sending you blessings and love. And my daughter's mother, I think she had high blood pressure too. They actually took her early. They gave her a C-section. They gave her magnesium and stuff to bring her blood down. But yeah, you'll be in my thoughts, and we'll see you on the other side with the baby. I don't know if that sounds bad. The other side, you know what I mean, right? She remained missing for 6 years before someone found her skull near Lake Desolation Road. Police have not revealed her cause of death. The best predictor of present or future behavior is past behavior. So has he ever abducted in the past. And this is Charlotte here. So authorities in 2017 told local media they believe the cases may be linked, and both have received renewed attention after the nearby abduction of 9-year-old Charlotte Sena, which garnered national attention. Here's Craig Ross Jr., weirdo, accused of kidnapping Charlotte off of her bike in Murray Lake State Park September 30th. I spent decades living in and around such parks. Police rescued the little girl from a camper parked on his mother's property on Barrett Road Monday. This is all bringing me like flashbacks of that crazy time. He's alleged to have abducted her, but we also know that the best predictor of the present or future behavior is past behavior. John Kelly, a criminal profile lawyer and president of Stock. So has he ever abducted in the past? Whoever killed White and Hammond likely knew the area well and may have had preference for redheads. Oh, I didn't think about that. Let me see. I don't know. I mean, okay. Kelly said he noted the proximity of the places where they were last seen, and their remains were found 10 miles away. Both had auburn hair. So this is where the whole thing with Charlotte started, at this park here, and she rode her bike around that campground, and her bike went missing. Started here. They believe like this is the path that he took. A visual representation of an approximation of suspected Charlotte Sena's kidnapper, Craig Ross, potential route home from Murray Lake State Park. Based on areas where police are asking residents to submit home security video taken the evening of September 30th. The path runs near wooded areas linked to unsolved slayings of 2 local cold cases. Corinth, Greenfield, Milton. Okay. Many killers are interested in certain physical characteristics of their victim, which are usually part of their fantasy. He told Fox News both victims were found in the deep woods of upstate New York. Both victims also vanished near trailer parks. I guess the similarities, I guess. This is the home of Craig Ross Jr. Ross has not been named a suspect in either cold case, but the alleged attempt on demand a ransom from Charlotte's family has the community members scrutinizing their reclusive, longtime neighbor. At this time, we have no information to indicate that he was or was not involved. Matthew Robinson told Saratoga County Sheriff's Office. No longer there. Amazing. But they didn't link it properly, I guess. As a routine step, we will look into Ross's possible connections to any outstanding cases in the jurisdiction. Still, Kelly said there's little publicly known evidence of a connection. He does have a history of violence, but he does not have much of a criminal history. Both cold case victims were in their late teens. Motives for the murders of White and Hammond remain unclear. There was an alleged ransom demand on Charlotte's abduction. Ross's first documented run-in with the law was in 1999, DWI conviction in the city of Saratoga Springs. That decades ago arrest led to his capture after police found his fingerprints on a ransom note placed in the Sena family mailbox. After that, he was accused of a couple of misdemeanors, aggravated harassment in 2016, and domestic violence in 2017. So they're looking at these new cases. BL found this from 3 years ago. Take a look at it with regards to Hammond and White, which I thought would be kind of an interesting look. Let me see here. Let's set up right here. Look into the past.
Each other.
2 unsolved murders that could be the work of one killer.
In tonight's Cold Case 13 file, Jerry Gressinger shares new details in the deaths of Jennifer Hammond and Christina White as investigators make a plea for information.
A warm summer day, late August 2003. 18-year-old Jennifer Hammond of Littleton, Colorado is dropped off at a mobile home park on Middle Line Road in Milton, part of a team going door-to-door selling magazine subscriptions. The last time anyone would see her alive.
But it's almost like at that point she never returned to the spot where the van was to pick everybody up.
Jennifer!
Saratoga County Sheriff Michael Zurlo was an investigator at the time. It wasn't alarming to Jennifer's co-workers at first. She'd been planning on returning to Colorado. They assumed she'd just gotten an early start. But all of her belongings and her bus ticket were still in her hotel room, and no one back home had heard from her. Fast forward to 2005, and with Jennifer still missing, another young woman, 19-year-old Christina White, is at home at the then Stockade Trailer Park on Rock City Road, also in Milton, and goes out for some air.
She went for a walk, and that was the last time she was seen.
Christina's mother, Suzanne, remembers how, just like with Jennifer, no one panicked when Christina didn't come home right away. But after a few days, they knew something was wrong. Zurlo took the lead on her disappearance.
She was last seen in the area of Geyser Road on Rollins Street in the town of Milton.
Less than a year later, March of 2006, a gruesome discovery was made a few miles away in the Daketown forest. Skeletal remains were found, not buried, but scattered throughout this section of pine trees. It was Christina, markings on her ribs consistent with stab wounds. The hunt for a killer was on. After 3 years and no arrests, another discovery, a human skull.
Yes, off of Lake Desolation Road, probably 2 to 3 miles from where Christina was located.
No other bones would be recovered, but dental records confirmed it was Jennifer Hammond. Similarities in the cases couldn't be ignored. After hundreds of interviews and a suspect profile by the FBI, Zurlo was convinced they were searching for one killer.
I honestly believe it's the same person. It could be somebody that's living in this area up here.
Today, investigators Kevin Herrick and Jeff Brown are on the case, resubmitting what little evidence was recovered to the crime lab, hoping new technology yields new leads. They've come to believe Jennifer was dropped off at this mobile home park, but turned around once her co-workers were out of sight.
We can't definitively prove she ever even made it into the park.
Instead, they think she made the short walk to convenience stores nearby on Geyser Road, the exact same spot where Christina White was last seen 2 years later. Investigators believe the perpetrator knew the area.
Which spot?
Definitively prove she ever even made it into the park.
Instead, they think she made the short walk to convenience stores nearby on Geyser Road, the exact same spot where Christina White was last seen 2 years later. Investigators believe the perpetrator knew the area well and may have frequented Geyser Road enough to have seen Jennifer walking here in 2003 and then Christina in 2005 on the nights they were last seen alive. The killer would have also known the Daketown Forest and Lake Desolation were just minutes away and were remote enough that he could drag their bodies into the woods and not even have to bury them. Despite the challenges, Zurlo believes he knows the killer's identity.
In my mind, I have somebody that was involved in this, but we need the evidence to prove that.
He's asking for the public's help, requesting any morsel of information that could finally deliver justice and provide some additional closure.
It did bring closure to the fact that we were looking for hope. We were looking for her to come home.
Suzanne says Christina continues to be a part of their lives, her ashes never far from them. Zurlo says Jennifer's family won't even talk about it anymore. Not until they know who killed their daughter.
As long as I'm here in this position and I have the team of investigators that I have that work for me, we're going to do the best to try to resolve this for her.
With Cold Case 13, I'm Jerry Gretzinger.
Now, if you want,
I don't know. Police say they're looking at 2 possible links to homicide. So we're gonna look at this. There's also this article about his ex. Let's just jump to the ex real quick. And if you guys could hit the like button, I'd appreciate that. Who was Amanda Priest? Craig Ross's ex believes he abducted Charlotte Sena as he knew about her $2.2 million family fortune. Possible motive, I guess. Pierce claimed that to the Daily Mail, also there's a Daily Mail article, that the 46-year-old Ross targeted Charlotte after he came to know that her grandfather, Patrick Sena, had a fortune that was worth $2 million in 1998. Per the news outlet, Patrick successfully sued the town of Greenfield for $2.2 million after a sledding accident that happened in 1989. Patrick, who was sledding with Charlotte's father, David, then 7, when he met with an accident and suffered a broken pelvis and spine fracture. He later sued the town successfully and received $2.2 million in damages. Per the Daily Mail, in that case concluded in 1998, almost a decade after the accident, he received $810,000 for past pain and suffering, and then $1 million for future pain and suffering. Wow, oh snap! And then $180,000 for past derivative losses, and $250,000 for future derivative losses. Okay, so I guess that's an added thing. Amanda Pierce also says, this is the ex, that Craig Ross never wanted to work. Ross's former girlfriend Pierce claimed to the outlet Charlotte's grandfather sued the town of Greenfield years ago, and some people around Saratoga are aware of this. She further added that why he held her ransom, he was hoping to get some money because he's struggling financially, for explaining that kind of money would set him up for around 4 or 5 years. He's never wanted to work. He's always wanted to find people to mooch off of, whether it's his girlfriends or making his mother feel bad because his MS is so bad. Pierce claimed that she was also a victim of Ross. She obtained a restraining order against him in 2017 after he grabbed her by the throat with both hands and threw her using force. Fox reported that he was arrested by the New York State Police April 21st in 2017 for a misdemeanor charge of criminal obstruction. Pierce also claimed that Ross was evil and his own children felt he was a monster. And if you guys have, there was a clip, I think I posted it on the channel. Bear, we're sending you love. All right, Bear. There was a clip. I think JLR took this.
He's charged with one count of kidnapping, and one of his neighbors says that in July, her grandson was nearly kidnapped by him. Police showed her a picture of that man.
And I forgot about that too. There was a neighbor claiming that this same dude tried to take her kid.
And she said, that's him. That's the man that tried to kidnap my grandson from our front lawn. He also has an 11-year-old daughter and 2 adult sons.
Wow. Imagine that this guy got kids. Lord.
Of the adult sons, one of them told Fox News, I hope he dies in prison. The 11-year-old daughter, who knows? I hope she is safe. And I hope she has been safe growing up with him.
Do you live here? You live here? Yeah. Okay.
So this is Craig Ross Jr.'s son. I guess JLR went to the house.
Authorities were here searching. I was covering the search. Could you just come down and say how you're feeling?
Yeah, I just told you how I'm feeling.
So you're saying you want nothing to do with him?
No, he's like, no. He's disgusting. He's gross. He should die. I can care less. That's how I feel. All right?
Gotcha.
I can give a rat's ass what happens.
Gotcha.
You got that video?
He's charged with one count of.
So it's also been reported that Ross moved his RV trailer behind his mother's home in Ballston Spa, which we just spoke about. Ballston, right? We just spoke about Ballston. Where's it at? Ballston Spa was related to these girls, right? Okay. There. So the one of the girls, Hammond, Colorado native that was last seen in August 2003 when co-workers dropped her off at Creek and Pines Trailer Park off Middle Lane Road in Ballston Spa. So this guy moves his trailer behind his mother's home in Ballston Spa because of his dire financial condition. However, Pierce contested that the claim, saying it could have been a ruse to get a place for hiding the girl. She said he had been following her family. He knew where they lived, before adding he watched her until she went around one last time and scooped her up. I feel he definitely had this pre-planned. Ross's ex further stated he put up tarp over the windows a few months prior, so I feel he had been planning it for a while. Wow. I didn't even know that. She continued, he has the patience for messed up things like that. She explained, The man didn't work, so in all the time sitting there drinking, he's thinking about his next moves. His mother could have seen through the window from her patio. So it's like literally right there. So he put up a tarp. She commented on his probable modus operandum and said, "You don't just take a child out of nowhere." He waited until she did one final loop on her own without her friends. So I think he was watching her for a while. Pierce also said that Ross might have met Charlotte before during softball practice at his daughter and Charlotte play in the same field. He also used to take his own children for camping in the Maru Lake State Park. Pierce continued to go to the campsite where they were at to know where they lived and to go to the park where they are. He definitely had this plan, before adding, he's the type of person which he pre-plans and it can be months ahead to do something. I think other people should know that he potentially met Charlotte while she was playing at the same field as his daughter. You never know who he might have come in contact with. Damn. Craig Ross, so we just listened. He said, "Hope he dies in prison," says suspect Craig Ross's son. Per Fox, a man claiming to be Ross's son said to the outlet when asked about the suspected kidnapper, "Yeah, he's using my father, but why would I have to deal with that ish?" Before adding, "Everyone is asking me all of this. I don't know anything. I hate him, and I hope he dies in prison."
What do we know about this new reporting about the financial possible motive? Do you know any more specifics on it, Jennifer?
Hi, Brian. How are you doing?
Good.
Specifically, this is information received from the former girlfriend, and it really discusses the fact that the Senas did possibly have money, and this knowledge would have been known to the individual who took her. So that just gave more information regarding that it possibly could have been really motivated by money. Of course, I think what gives us all pause is this delay, the delay of 48 hours before any note was given. And that's what's concerning to everyone.
Yeah, and from what I understand, it was her late grandfather who had received some kind of public settlement from the town there. I think there was a sledding accident, actually, and he received quite a bit of money as a settlement that was public knowledge that people knew about and heard about in the town. So it would make sense that perhaps Craig Ross knew about it. But also new today, Jennifer, we're learning that they are also now looking into other cases, older cases, specifically 2 cases involving women that went missing and were murdered. What do we know about that, Jennifer?
Well, Brian, it makes all the sense in the world. Law enforcement has a duty to look at any and all cases that would have similar modus operandi, specifically other kidnappings. And in these cases, they both resulted in murder, but they were in the area similar to where he was known to be. And so it makes all the sense that they have to look into these cases and see if there is any nexus.
Yeah, Mark, they do seem like different cases, though. I mean, there's not a lot of similarities to what happened here.
Well, but Jen's right in the sense that they would be remiss if they didn't investigate this. I could give you a couple of examples. I remember when I was representing then Congressman Condit, I was just kind of gobsmacked or dumbstruck by the fact that they did not investigate similar kinds of incidents that had taken place in the disappearance of Chandra Levy. And as it turned out, they ended up prosecuting somebody who they actually had in custody at the time. There's another case here in California, literally 5 blocks north of where I'm sitting right now, where a second or a third model has been murdered in the downtown LA high-rise. And the police are poo-pooing the idea that they're related, but I know for a fact that they're investigating whether in fact they are, because anytime you've got a series of incidents like this, the police, that's the first thing that the police or law enforcement do, is try and make sure, rule out that there isn't any kind of a connection.
Yeah, I want to talk to you more about that model case later, because I'm actually obsessed with that case. We had the families of the models on earlier this week. I've gotten to know them, and they're not getting.
You talked about?
We'll get.
They're not getting answers.
They're not getting answers. There's something strange there. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well,
I was going to say, and we'll deal with that later because I have questions
but
about
I'm
that
glad
as
you
well.
brought it up because I'm really into that case. But Jennifer, I just want to end with you. What do you make of the situation with the ransom note with this alleged kidnapper? I mean, the fact that he went and put the note in their mailbox while the police were out there keeping an eye on the house after she was kidnapped. I mean, thankfully he did, because it sounds like that's how it all unfolded. Where they were able to figure out who he was. But I mean, really, like not a smart guy, it doesn't seem like.
Well, and if you look at the terms of the note that was described by the state police, it was very rudimentary, really just a few words, at least according to him. And that doesn't make any sense. First of all, it doesn't make any sense that it's 48 hours later. It doesn't make any sense that the terms weren't outlined. In other words, what do we need to do? When do we need to do it? Where is she? Can we have some proof of life? Nothing, at least if from what we know. So that gives us pause. Was this really a ransom? Was it really about money? And again, for somebody to go.
It's weird, all right. All right, so we're gonna get into Nancy, but let me do this the map thing here. I believe these are the locations. Mo was helping me pull up the stuff. So, okay, the guy, Craig Ross Jr., lived right here, Barrett Road. And so the next location is where? Milton Center right here. So the next location is Milton Center area right here by Geyser in Middletown. That one is where Jennifer Hammond was last seen, Geyser Road. Okay. And then the next location is where body parts were found. Where's it at? Greenfield. This one over here. That's where body parts were found. And then the last location that I have here is where Christina White was last seen. So kind of just like all within this little area, 20 minutes or less from each other, I guess. I guess maybe that's why they're looking at him. All right, let's listen to some Nancy. I'm kind of like spent after today. The last couple of days. It's going to be super loud too. It's always loud.
What will the night be without stars? What will the night be?
Tomorrow is going to be crazy. Melissa B said NYPD is preparing for a possible attack on us tomorrow. Yeah, they called for jihad. So I was debating on coming on later tonight on the backup channel, the secondary channel. But I don't know. I think I should probably just chill tonight and rest. But definitely tomorrow I'll come on and talk about. Tomorrow's probably going to be a big day. They're all calling for jihad and for people to go out and protest, but who knows?
Be without stars.
Then Judy discovered
sister and her kids have to
insurance for your
kidnapped off the street during a camping trip with their parents, just a few minutes away from home, 20-30 minutes max, at Lake Moreau State Park. Miraculously found alive, crammed into a cabinet in her kidnapper's camper parked behind his mother's house. When police stormed the camper, we learn he was wearing his underwear, and that is not nearly as gross as it gets. We are now learning that there's a possibility that he targeted the 9-year-old little girl after learning her late grandfather had gotten a settlement for $2 million all the way back in 1998. Was he misdirected? Did he think somehow he could get his mitts on her grandfather's money? Why was he in his underwear with the little girl in a camper? What more have we learned about him from neighbors? Has he been approaching other children in the neighborhood? We're learning also that he may have been involved in some sort of harassment on another little girl. This, as we learn, police are investigating potential links between him and 2 other cold cases involving teen girls. I'm Nancy Grace. This is Crime Stories. Thank you for being with us here at Fox Nation and Sirius XM 111. First of all, take a listen to this.
She is the most courageous, resilient, amazing person literally I've ever encountered in my life. Just unbelievable that she is just, I mean, if this just describes it a little bit, you know, she's hugging her visitors and she's doing it to console us, not the other way around. She's just amazing. I can't even explain like the feeling of when the trooper pulled up to the campsite really fast, like wheels peeled and everything. And I had just convinced my sister-in-law to get something to eat. She hadn't eaten, you know, in almost 2 days, I don't think. And so we were over by the food table, and then we heard the trooper pull up, and he jumped down. He said, "We found her," and it was like just screaming. And I still have a hoarse voice. All these days later, I had no voice for several days. I screamed so much. Just thanking God, thanking the police, just anyone, but just thank God that this outcome happened. And we were all just, I mean, there was probably 30 or 40 of us there. It was probably really loud and just so beyond elated. And at that moment in time, nothing else mattered. Really, nothing else mattered. It was just like, I thought I was dreaming.
You are hearing Jane Sena speaking to us just a few moments ago. This is Charlotte's aunt about the moment that they discovered Charlotte was actually alive. Of course, the reality is so much different for the majority of other parents whose children go missing, stranger on stranger abduction. Joining me, the founder and director of the Cold Case Research Institute. You can find her at coldcasecrimes.org, host of a brand new podcast, Zone 7, Cheryl McCollum, forensic expert. Cheryl, the vast majority of kidnappings are typically family kidnappings, custodial kidnappings. When you get a stranger on stranger kidnapping, the likelihood the child will be killed is so much greater.
It's so much greater, and it's fast. Normally, it's within the first 3 hours. So when we have a situation that is going into the third day, I mean, the likelihood that Charlotte would have ever been found alive is astonishing, and it's a remarkable day.
Guys, we're learning so much about this guy, this alleged kidnapper. But first, I want you to hear our Cut 35 from GMA. What more do we know about the alleged perp?
Carol Brown lives down the street from alleged kidnapper Craig Ross Jr. and tells us he had a suspicious encounter with her 9-year-old grandson this summer.
I see my grandson, and there's at this point standing with his back to me, right over him. He said, "Hey, I was just asking him if he could come help me. I got a weed whacker." And
Brown says when she offered to get her husband to help, Ross took off. She didn't know who he was until this week when officers who were interviewing neighbors arrived at her house and heard about her grandson. They showed her pictures of suspects, and she says she recognized Ross immediately.
I literally almost got sick to my stomach, fell off my chair almost.
You know, that's cardinal rule number 1. With me, joining us from Fox News Digital, investigative crime reporter Christopher Eberhardt, who's been on the story and at the scene since the get-go. Chris, thank you for being with us. I know you're on the scene and you're chock full of all sorts of facts about the alleged perp, Craig Nelson Jr. I don't know how much you are familiar with the do's and don'ts of telling children how to stay safe, but cardinal rule number 1 is adults don't need your help. Adults don't need the help of a 9-year-old little boy to start a weed whacker. Adults don't need a 9-year-old little girl to give them directions. They don't need help from a 5-year-old in the front yard to tell them where their lost puppy is. Adults do not need your help. So, number 1, adult asks you, hey, can you just step over to my car window and tell me which way is the, I don't know, QT Quick Trip? No, you turn the other way, the other direction from which the car is going, and you run like HELL, preferably through front yards and backyards and down alleys and over clotheslines where a car cannot follow you. So right there, did you hear that, Christopher Eberhardt, Fox News Digital? Up to a 9-year-old little boy. Is it a coincidence? Charlotte's 9 years old, asking the boy to help him start a weed whacker, and then when they offer to get an adult, he vanishes?
Yeah, I've heard that story, Nancy, and thanks again for having me. Yes, I did hear that story. There was a lot of neighbors, too, that were kind of, I guess they had the heebie-jeebies. The hair on their neck stood up with him, and they could never really place their finger on it. Like, people right next door, they really didn't want anything to do with it. They let their shrubs grow out. They really didn't want their children interacting anytime that he was around. They kind of stuck to themselves, and they told me that they purposely would avoid him.
You know, there's reasons for that. With me, Dr. Bethany Marshall, renowned psychoanalyst, joining us out of Beverly Hills. You can find her at drbethanymarshall.com. Dr. Bethany, what is that? You and I have talked about it, that feeling. A lot of people call it a hunch. I think that is really avoid.
Ali posted, happy to know that Timothy Faraday is about to be eating his first jail meal tonight. By the way, Timothy's attorney, a few people told me, I've done an interview with Court TV. I don't know how long it is, 12 minutes. TV legal? We could check that out too in a little bit.
Avoiding what that feeling really is. And I believe it's born from thousands and thousands of years of survival instinct. When you don't know what it is, but you have a horrible feeling and your instinct is to run. Whenever I see a snake, I want to run. Now, it could be a garter snake. It could be something very, but that's my instinct. Always. I'm not one of those people that enjoy taking photos with a snake draped around my neck. There's a reason for that, okay? Just like these people in this neighborhood, they didn't know what it was. They couldn't put their finger on it, what they've told us, but they did not want their children near this guy.
You know, Nancy, the idea that this is part of the survival instinct is so brilliant, because think about it. What got hardwired into us as human beings is the instinct that helped us to survive, right? Everything else falls by the wayside.
Yeah, I was just, who's that? Melissa says, dude, I've with a lot of people at my apartment building. There's at least two kind of weirdos here that I've seen. One guy that lives under me. And I was literally, the crazy thing about that, because one time I had a friend over, and I always thought this guy was weird. And one time, she saw the guy and she told me, she's like, you know, that guy's weird. I'm like, yo, it's the same thing. Like, I just get a vibe and a sense from that guy. There's just like something off. And then there's some other one too, kind of bald, old guy. Well, bald on top with like hair dangling on the sides, you know, like a bald, but like just hair coming to the side, like up to here. It's like, he's like, oh, but he's not smiling, kind of like that, just like walking his dog sometimes. I was actually talking about it today. I was like, this guy's a effing weirdo. It's just something, I don't know what it is. Just something coming off of this guy that's just kind of like, I don't know.
But what helps us to survive, or helped us to survive evolutionarily, endures in all of us at a cellular level, at a memory level. And this guy had all the signs of being dangerous. He was disheveled. He had poor social skills. He was isolated. He lived in an odd environment. He had tarps over the window or behind the window and in the camper van that he lived in behind his mother's house. I mean, I could go on and on and on. And he preferentially targeted children. And, you know, I see this often. It could be the choir director at the church. It could be a teacher who insists on taking the child home to tutor them after school. I always say nobody should be more interested in your children than you are.
Well put.
Nobody, not even an aunt or an uncle or a grandparent.
Expose.com have come to your journey connecting with more.
Of course, whatever a neighbor may feel or their instinctive reactions, that's not allowed in court. Joining me right now, Dr. Ernest Scioto, attorney, physician, biomedical engineer, toxicologist, and author of Toxic Tort, Medical and Legal Elements. Okay, that's a lot. You can find him at Ernest P. Scioto.
How is it relevant to his crime, to his guilt, that he lives an odd lifestyle? Now that's not to say that you shouldn't be concerned. People can have their antenna up, but in a court of law, there's a sort of strong shield to keep unrelevant evidence out, evidence that would confuse a jury and lead them to make a conviction based upon just extraneous matters.
You're so right, Dr. Scioto. And of course, on appeal, the objection irrelevant actually doesn't get you a new trial. It may get you a ruling in court in front of a jury. Yeah, move along, counselor. That is irrelevant. But it's not grounds for a reversal on appeal. Now, if someone came up on the stand and was talking about, he gave me a bad gut feeling. Okay, number one, that can be reversible because it touches on the defendant's character. Reputation evidence is not allowed in court unless and until it meets the threshold requirements of being, for instance, a similar transaction or a prior bad act that has already been agreed upon by the court. You can't just bring in, oh yeah, Jackie over there, she's a big drunk. P.S. She's not. You can't bring something like that into evidence. No. Also, it cannot be tested scientifically. You got a hunch? Okay, that's not scientific proof. Much like a polygraph still can't come in unless both sides stipulate to it up front in a criminal trial. So, long story short, Dr. Scioto's exactly correct, but aside from the creepy vibe he puts off in the neighborhood, what about this? In our Cut 60, take a listen to our friends at crimeonline.com.
Craig Ross Jr., the 47-year-old alleged kidnapper of Charlotte Sena, was actually accused of sexually abusing a 12-year-old acquaintance more than a year ago, according to the Albany Times-Union. However, these allegations were not reported until this past summer. Ross has since denied the girl's allegations, and the state police closed the investigation last month without filing any charges.
Hell nah. I did see some mention of this. I forgot about this too. That's a pretty big deal. Craig Ross was investigated for abusing another child last month, but cops closed the case when he denied it. Suspect demanded $50,000. Wow. Lord almighty. Ross Jr. was reported to police earlier this year over claims he SA'd somebody, a female relative, when she was 12. The alleged crime happened last year, but it was only just reported when questioned. Craig Ross denied the allegations and the case was closed. It's unclear if it'll be reopened after the situation with Charlotte being taken. I guess that's the tarp they were talking about. Cover things up.
Charges. This, according to 3 sources close to the matter, telling the Times-Union.
Okay, Christopher Eberhardt. Chris Eberhardt joining me, investigative reporter with Fox News Digital, on the case from the get-go. And hey, Chris, listen, we're not in the 5th grade where you have to answer my question. Please, pipe up if you have more information. You know, you've been out there beating the bushes, on the streets, watching, listening, talking, writing it all down, taking pictures. You tell me anything you think we need to know. But specifically, what about this? Accused of sex assaulting a 12-year-old girl over a year ago, and the charges were dropped.
Yeah, my colleague actually was writing about this, and he was the one that dug into this. Obviously, that should have raised some red flags right there.
You know, I'm concerned about this, too. Cheryl McCollum, why? Is it because the little girl wanted to back out and didn't want to testify? Is it because she didn't tell anybody for a year later? That's entirely possible. Rape victims very often don't tell anybody. I mean, Cheryl McCollum, I know grown women, you'd be very surprised at who they are, that have never revealed a sex assault that happened in their youth. Can you believe that? Yes, I do. I know them very, very well.
Absolutely. Most sexual assault victims know they're going to be put on trial. What they were wearing, where they were, why they were alone, their actions or inactions. But in this case, Nancy, we have a live victim that can tell what this kidnapper did, what he said, what he demanded. That's going to be really critical. And now we have the grandmother that says her grandson was also approached by this person on a bicycle. Same person. So now we have one victim and one witness that can talk about the actions of this person, and hopefully other people will come forward. With that 12-year-old in her case, what if she told a very similar story? He said this, he did that, he demanded this. They may have to reopen that case.
Bethany Marshall joining us, and then special guest joining us, Shauna Burns, Haley Burns' mom. Dr. Bethany, I think what Cheryl just said is absolutely correct. The victim will be put on trial on cross-exam, but I think that it's even deeper than that. For instance, this little 12-year-old girl, she's not thinking about a trial. She just probably doesn't want to talk about it. There's something about it. You just don't want to talk about it. It's hurtful. It's embarrassing. You feel stupid for fill in the blank, putting yourself in that position, going along with whatever. The guy said, hey, come inside and look at my puppy. You went inside. You blame yourself. There's a myriad of reasons why victims never say a word.
Nancy, because it feels humiliating and shameful, as you just so articulately put. So think about your own children, John David and Lucy, when they were really, really little. If anybody mistreated them or were not nice to them, they blame themselves, right? Even if it was in a more benign way, like, maybe a teacher was a little gruff at them. They'd come home and ask, what did I do wrong? So you put that, increase that exponentially to a rape or a sex assault, and the child is really going to blame themselves, and then move that into adulthood. Adult women and men who are raped, abused, they fall into that same infantile, childlike, mindset that it must be their fault. And there's an evolutionary reason for that too. When we blame ourselves rather than the other person, we hold on to our relationships, and holding on to our relationships is what helped us to survive as a species. And now it's become more complex, and it's morphed in our modern day society to really understanding that this allows perpetrators and a poly-perpetrator like this guy who has multiple offense patterns to really gain a foothold over our most vulnerable members of society.
Wow, you put that beautifully. With me now to react to what we have learned so far, and there's a lot more, including 2 additional cold cases that are being eyed for connections to the same perp that allegedly took little Charlotte. Shauna Burns is with me now. This is Haley Burns' mom. We all remember the Haley Burns case, the waiting, the praying, the torture, not knowing what had happened. I was going to say it for you, Shauna, but you tell our viewers and listeners what happened to Haley.
It all started on April the 28th. She met this man online in an internet forum specifically targeted to people that have eating disorders. And by May the 23rd, he had convinced her to leave our house and to go live with him, that he understood her eating disorder better than we did, that we would never understand it, that we would never understand her, that we would never be understanding of her eating disorder. We would always want her to get help for it, and that he understood her and that he could help her with it.
Well, let me understand something. Isn't it true your little girl, Haley, ended up being held captive in a cage for 13 months?
Yes, that is true. For 399 days, yes. That is absolutely true, yes. And everything was fine. He drove from Georgia to Charlotte 4 hours. She said in the drive everything was fine. They listened to music, and he let her listen to whatever she wanted to. They got fast food on the way. Everything seemed fine. But the second that he closed that door, everything changed. And she knew that she wasn't going to be able to leave. He made it very clear that she was his prisoner and that there was nothing that she could do and that no one knew that she was there and that she would be there as long as he wanted her to. And when he didn't want her to be there anymore, she wouldn't be.
Was she afraid she would be killed?
Oh, yes. There were many, many times where he choked her beyond consciousness, where she felt like, this is it, I'm going to die. That happened many, many, many times during her captivity with him. There were many different times where at one point he filled a bathtub full of water and held her under the water he would hold her under the water until she passed out, and then he would let her come up, regain consciousness, and then push her back under the water. And he did that. She said she lost track of time because it was so long, but it had to be hours. So there were many times where she thought that he was going to kill her.
And she was starved?
Yes, that was definitely part of it. He was very much into controlling how much she ate. She was only allowed 100 calories a day.
Ooh,
and if she wanted more than
calories?
that, she had to earn those calories through favors. And
what do you mean by favors?
I mean, different favors that she would do for him would earn different amounts of food.
She was raped?
Yes.
Any sex with a teen girl that age is statutory rape?
Yes.
Whether she thinks she went along with it, this young girl who was being kept in a cage for 13 months, given 100 calories a day, being waterboarded, that's rape. And I understand where you're coming from, Miss Burns, because I know adult women that still to this day have not revealed, even to their husbands, that they were sex assaulted when they were younger. They just don't want to talk about it. I get it. But the longer we keep acting like there's shame attached to what happens to women, the longer it will take us.
I don't even understand this thing here. It says here that in May, Wolaskov, 33, who originally faced charges of R and aggravated S and false imprisonment, pleaded guilty to first-degree cruelty to children and interstate interference after agreeing to a deal with the Gwinnett County prosecutors. He was sentenced to 10 years probation and will not spend any time in prison. He has to register as an offender. What in the hell? How do you manage that? How do you get a deal like that?
To fight it. Your daughter was
some Faraday shit.
Horribly
Faraday
mistreated. 100 calories a day. What would that be? A soda cracker?
She was allowed sugar-free Jell-O, and I believe those are 15 calories each. So she was allowed 2 of those. She was allowed a packet of cheese crackers, and sometimes she was allowed baby food. But again, if she wanted any substantial food, she had to do sexual favors to earn meat and cheese.
Oh, I can hardly stand to hear what you're saying. Where is this devil straight from hell now?
Well, he's in jail right now because I put him there recently for violating his parole, but he will be out again in February. I've actually put him in prison 3 times for violating his parole.
Oh, well, I will help you for the 4th time. I can't wait to be part of that. So when you're hearing about Charlotte's kidnap and everything that Chris Eberhardt from Fox News Digital is telling us.
Is it really back in jail? Because this article says he didn't serve time. Michael Wosoloskiv. Let's check it out. I don't know. Multiple articles are saying the man gets time served after doing what he did. Prison bound. Oh, okay. So this was after arrested on September 17th for violating his probation. He was found to have made 3 homemade tapes of himself with his girlfriend, violating special terms of his offender status. Oh, wow. So he did get locked back up. It's always weird to me how those people get so little time. Oh, look, they have a little court thing here, too. I don't want to go down the rabbit hole now, but...
How does that strike you, Miss Burns?
Let me tell you, I was very aware of the situation because I am on TikTok, and TikTok is a very good resource for missing people. It is a huge, like, everyone gets those videos very quickly. So I was very aware of it. And when the news came that they had found her, I literally hit my freaking knees praying and crying. I was so thankful for her family that they had found her. There's like no words, but I also have the exact same reaction where I hit my knees crying when they don't find them as well. So I was so thankful for her family that they found her. But I know what comes along with that. There is going to be a trial. There's going to be therapists. There's going to be specialists.
Oh, gosh, you guys have just been through hell and back. And now, hold on just a moment. As if that guy's not bad enough, we're now learning a potential motive in the kidnapping of Charlotte. We don't know whether Charlotte was raped or sex assaulted. We don't know what happened in that camper. We know she's alive. We are learning more about potential motive. Take a listen to our Cut 56, our friends at crimeonline.com.
Charlotte Sena's grandfather sued and won a...
Oh, we covered that already. All right, so it's the end of that. Let's do one more thing, and then I think I'm just going to rest the rest of the night. I'm not going to try to push it today, so I'm rested tomorrow. Let's take a look at this. I still got things I got to do here in the house.
Court TV legal correspondent Julia Janae, and you're with the defense team.
Look at that.
That's right. Matt, thanks for introducing the defense attorney who was sitting here with me, Priya Murad, and your co-counsel, Karam Wade, who you both valiantly
they do that
just
sometimes.
really put on a defense for your client. It was a very difficult case, but walk me through right now, knowing that this jury has come back with this decision. What's just the reaction there at the defense table? I saw you hugging Tracy so tightly.
It's always heartbreaking. I think people forget this about criminal court, particularly when they're watching true crime or even court TV. I mean, you go from having a person who is free on earth to being completely incarcerated. So for Tracy, she
just like Ronan
went from having a husband that she has seen every day for her life, absent when he's, traveling for work, to someone who's sitting in a jail cell. And as a lawyer, as a defense lawyer, that happens, in our profession as well. And so it's always, it never gets easier.
Yeah, he seemed to be more prepared for it than she was. Was he prepared? I know you asked for him to be kept out on house arrest. Was he thinking that could be a possibility, or knew that today could have been his last day being able to go home?
I can't speak on his behalf. I can tell you that prior to any of my clients, anyone getting a verdict or doing a plea, we have a discussion about these are sort of the realm of options that could happen. So he was prepared in the sense that we told him best case and worst case.
And I know sorry, didn't mean to cut you off, right outside of the courthouse when this was over, there was a press conference. A lot of us were asking you questions. So some of these are repeats of that, but I appreciate you joining us here live. But I do
there was
want
a press conference?
About this decision not to take the stand. Do you regret that he didn't get to tell jurors his side of the story in light of the verdict?
So, look, it is the government's job to prove their case beyond a reasonable doubt. This idea that people should take the stand or need to take the stand and tell their story is really distant from what the Constitution requires. And so we made a decision based on our belief that at that time the evidence that the state presented was not sufficient. The jury, of course, took that and, came with the verdict that they did. But, after a guilty verdict, you go back and you think through everything, right? Your voir dire, could I have done this or that differently? But I do feel that we put on, absent some of the rulings, the best case that we could on behalf of Tim. And, we're going to be pursuing an appeal for him.
A lot of people were wondering about the 24 months that was offered by the prosecution at one point before this case. And of course, now that he's facing 40 years at sentencing in November, wondering if he should have taken the deal. But you revealed something to me that people may not have known that was a condition of that 24 months.
So the plea deal that we were provided was 2 years followed by 5 years probation, contingent on Tracy either taking a plea or Tim doing a proffer against Tracy.
I had a feeling. I was literally talking to a friend about this today, but I didn't think he would be able to do a proffer because, since they're married, I thought maybe they couldn't. I thought married people couldn't testify or do whatever against each other. I had a feeling there was some type of, it wasn't just the 5 years or whatever, but there was something else. He would have to, I guess, snitch.
So to me, that people may not have known that was a condition of that 24 months.
So the plea deal that we were provided was 2 years followed by 5 years probation, contingent on Tracy either taking a plea or Tim.
So she would have to also take a plea or him offer a proffer, which now they're kind of probably wishing they did.
Doing a proffer against Tracy. I had asked the prosecution what the plea for Tracy would be, and we never knew it. It was kind of okay, if he's not interested, then, you know, we're not going to negotiate on Tracy's end. So the decision that we made based on that, I mean, I think it's a little misleading to say that there was a clear plea deal in this case. It was made very last minute and close to trial. And, you know, Tim wanted to tell through the trial his story as well. So that was a plea deal that we spoke about in great detail and that he rejected, as he has a right to do.
Was there a difference between them being severed and together when it comes to plea negotiations? Would that have impacted it at all?
I don't believe it did in this case. I think it can in other cases, but it did not in this case.
Let's talk about some of the things that the judge did not allow in this case. I know you mentioned that there will be an appeal in this case and that you may be trying to keep your client out of jail pending that appeal, but what are some of the strongest things that you feel you'll be putting in that appellate motion?
So we filed several motions in limine regarding the child's behavior prior to when he ran away on January 28th, 2022. We were cut off anything prior to the age of about 9 or 10. The court found that it was temporally irrelevant. Even after the state's expert, Wade Meyer, said, oh, there's nothing before the age of 10, we were not permitted to cross-examine on that despite asking. My expert, because, just given the rules of evidence, was not able to specifically speak about it. So we were very limited in what we could offer as far as the prior record. We also wanted to admit, to show no malicious intent, that there were actually adults since the removal that have had to take actions due to the fact that the behavior of the child was not improving. Again, it's not my intention to disparage the child, but these are in written pleadings that we believe that it was essential for the jury to hear this, because it shows that how other grown-ups, right, how other adults are acting towards him, which goes to this idea of intent. And it also, there is a level of hypocrisy here from the state that, we have taken a child from a situation into another situation that should be improving and better. The state's expert testified that if you take a child with an attachment disorder and remove them from that situation, you anticipate to see improvement. We asked if we could then discuss what was previously not permitted in evidence, and we were not allowed to do so.
And just to recap that, because I did think that was an interesting argument inside the court, I was a little bit surprised at the ruling that Dr. Myers said that, hey, if you take this child or someone who's suffering from RAD and they're in a better environment, then they should improve. And you all wanted to show that he may not have improved in the way that was suggested, but that was denied. Many things were denied in this case. Was that frustrating at a certain point? You had to deal with a barrage of objections over and over in this case.
The state has a right to make any objection that they feel is in good faith. So I'm never going to knock an attorney for doing what they think is right. I think that as defense attorneys, I've been doing this for many years now. We know there's always an implicit bias against the accused and their lawyers, regardless of whether people wish to admit that or not. This idea that people come in thinking this person is presumed innocent, no one does that. And so I think that unfortunately...
She's fired. Tired of everybody, tired of these YouTube people, tired of people in the chat, tired of it. You all just say the person's guilty. You don't listen to the story. You don't presume innocence.
We see that in our courtrooms as well, and I think any defense attorney watching this can say that that is something that routinely happens in our trials. So, of course, I find it frustrating, but I am sorry to say that I am used to it. And, as defense attorneys, we do what we can to put on our case with what we're able to present.
When it comes to sentencing, what's that going to look like from you all's end? Do you have people already that you're planning to call? And what do you think the judge will do?
I don't know what the judge will do. In the state of Florida, you have a guideline range, not quite like we have in our federal courts, but there's a score at the bottom and then a max, and the court has sort of that range. But the court can also do what's called a downward departure, and so we will, of course, be making every argument that we can to get Tim the lowest possible sentence.
And what is that range? It's from where to where?
Last time I checked, it's about prior to the child neglect being filed, which was done right before trial. He scored 35 months. at the bottom up to the 40 years. And so that's about where the judge has the range. But again, the motion for downward departure allows the judge to depart under that range at the bottom.
Okay. Let's talk about that child neglect charge, because we were researching this case and then kind of scrambling at the last moment, realizing, wait a minute, this is different than the indictment. Do you know what prompted the child neglect charge to being added almost a year and a half after they filed the initial indictment and after the plea deal was turned down? Is that right?
It is after the plea deal was turned down. I don't know. Look, the state has the right to file what they want on the information. They have the right to add additional charges. I don't think it's appropriate necessarily to pile on, because as you pile on more charges, that possible sentence gets higher and higher, right? And so you're sort of leveraging against a person to try and, make them take a plea deal or not go to trial. And so as a defense attorney, that's very frustrating because, as you know, trials are dying because of trial taxes, because of mandatory minimums, because of guideline ranges that are really scaring people from fighting their cases as they have a right to do.
Can you talk about this family at all? This is a case that has really torn them apart. We saw the Ferreter daughters in the courtroom for closings, just reminding us that it's not just RF that's at the center of this. There are other children who are right now no longer with their parents. Just what can you say from the defense and defense attorney standpoint?
I think this is an incredibly sad case because I think regardless of what the verdict had been, an entire family has been completely torn apart. And regardless of what, the state has presented and what the jury has found, they did love these kids. And at this point, they went from a family of 4 who's like going on, trips and going to Sedona and doing things together to being completely, now Tracy's out of custody, Tim's in custody. The kids some of them are together, and I, can't really speak to that, but, some of the kids are separated, and it's like this entire process has completely destroyed this family. Wow. And the purpose, and I'm talking now about sort of more dependency cases, but the purpose of our dependency system is family reunification. And I said this before and I'll say it again. If we gave people resources, you have no safety net for people with a child with a mental health issue, and people don't know how to handle it. Particularly, I think it's becoming, more and more mainstream. But I think that in general, there's a lot of bad advice out there. There's a lack of resources, and you can't just walk into an inpatient facility. You have to get a referral. You have to go through this entire process. And so I think that it is a real failure of the system, a lot of systems that we are unfortunately here today. And I don't think that Tim Ferreter being in custody or going to prison solves any of that.
Now, the prosecution, we spoke with them just a bit ago, and they said that parents need to seek professional medical help, that's the one piece of advice that they can give. Can you talk about what help the Ferreters did get in those 6 weeks, and if there was any kind of, I asked you this before, any kind of advice they got, not just professional, but any layperson that may have said this was a good idea?
No, I think it's very clear that the way in which, and this was part of the defense, that this was handled was not correct. No one offered this particular advice. Dr. Rappa did say there are practitioners, and paraprofessionals that have a more, a strict militaristic view of treatment, but she doesn't agree with that. And I'm not a professional, but I agree with her. So no, that's not the case. But this idea that they never sought the help is not true. The help is not easy to get for anybody with a mental health issue, including children and including parents of children. And when they came to Florida, they went to a pediatrician. This barely came out in evidence because we were only able to get into it a little bit with Dr. Rappa per the rulings. But there was an effort to ask for a psychiatrist. I think anybody knows you don't I can't get a doctor's appointment for 3 months out for my basic needs. So this idea that, there's just appointments available is not true. When they came in, they sought a psychiatrist. There was actually an incident at the school, and one of the teachers recommended them a psychiatrist, and they were waiting. They came in right before Christmas.
So they were still working on it. And Priya, we only have about 30 seconds left. Anything that you want to say before we do have to send it back to our studio in Atlanta? And thank you again for talking to us.
I just am devastated for Tim Ferreter, for Tracy, for the family, and we appreciate the jury for taking the time that they did. We wish that the verdict was different, and I wish that this family could be together. I don't think what happened today solves any problems.
Attorney Priya Murad, thank you so much.
Yeah. She's not bad, man. Y'all hating on the lady. She all right. She all right. Oh, man. Oh, she kind of came snapping though. So nah, not having that. No impartial jury. You guys already made up your mind before the person even presents their case. Let's just keep it real. We're pretending you're unbiased and you believe in the constitutional right. Get out of here with the bullshit. Sick of this all the time. Every day. Everybody's just guilty. All right, man. I guess I'm gonna call it. I probably shouldn't even came on tonight, but I want to push just a little bit. And yeah, unless there's a chase, I'll call it a night. If there's a chase, I'm probably gonna jump on the second channel. If there's I want to start transitioning over there for the chases. I think for the chases. So just make sure you subscribe. But what I could do too is like on the main channel, I could schedule something and just put the link for the channel that we're gonna be at for the people that don't know. So if there's a chase, I'll come back. If not, good night. Buenas noches. Sweet dreams. And I don't know. We'll see what tomorrow brings. Tomorrow's a jihad day, so just be careful with that. Especially if you're in New York or I don't know wherever you are. I heard they're closing. I heard they're kind of taking over UK too. We'll talk about that in the other channel. They're over here. It's kind of crazy. Tomorrow's gonna be something. I think tomorrow's gonna be something kind of crazy going on. We mentioned this earlier in the stream. The Jihad Day. The former Hamas leader. He's asking people to go out, hit the streets. Global mobilization. Friday the 13th, by the way. All right. So just be careful if you're out there. They were calling for, jihad means holy or unholy war. All right. So maybe they'll be peacefully protesting. I don't know. Just be careful. All right. Good night. Bye.